Hello and welcome to another episode of Issues and Insights. I'm Bryce Shoemate from Hardin County Government, and as you all can see, we're spaced apart here, still trying to go along with the social distancing. So I've got two good friends with me today. We've got Daniel London, our Deputy Judge Executive from Hardin County. Daniel, thank you for joining us today. And we've got our brand new EMS Director, our Emergency Medical Services Director, Mark Peterson is with us today. Mark, thanks for joining us today. And we're going to kind of baptize you in fire today a little bit because not to put you on the spot. Now, I got to tell y'all, this is the first time Mark's been on TV, so
maybe we knock that new employee smell
off. We're going to knock the new off of him real quick. So, Mark, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Mark, how many years have you been with Hardin County EMS?
I've been with Hardin County EMS for 12 years now.
12 years.
Yes, sir.
And I know you took a little stint where you went down to be a deputy director.
Yes, I was at Georgetown Scott County EMS in Georgetown, Kentucky for about 2.5 years as their assistant director in charge of quality assurance. And then came back over to Hardin County about 2.5 years ago.
So now this is your first month, or is it your second month?
My second month.
My
yes,
gosh,
sir.
It's gone by fast. It's your second month as our EMS director.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk to some of our folks that are watching some of the hurdles you've had to kind of jump through?
Well, as everybody knows, COVID has been a big challenge for us, and we've had to make some changes to our daily operations concerning COVID, how our crews respond to patients that potentially be COVID. So that's been a big challenge administratively on my end to keep those guys educated and up to speed on what we're doing and what the changes are. And then, of course, with change, there's always resistance. So some of the things that I've liked to have made some changes as I came in, not met with complete resistance, but there's been some things that have been questioned and stuff. But it's okay. We're doing good. Our run volume's up. We hit a low there when COVID first came around because everybody was fearful of the hospital and getting exposed themselves, which is justifiable.
Sure.
But our run volume's back up. We're on track to make about 17,000 to 18,000 runs this year.
I mean, like when COVID was really hitting its mark, when people were extremely worried, we were down to 20 some odd
20
runs
to 30
a
runs
day,
a day, yes.
Where we were doing 50 and 60.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And now you're back up to 60 and 70 runs a day?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're like I said, we're definitely on track to make between 17,000 to 18,000 runs by the end of the year, for sure. So,
Mark, when folks, what are some of the things that you want the public, since they're watching us right now, what are some of the things that you want the public to know when our paramedics, our EMTs come to the house for whenever they're called to someone's house? What are some of the things you want the folks to know?
You can expect them to 100% of the time be at least in a mask to deal with, protect the patients calling 911, and of course the crews as well. And if we have a suspicion that your symptoms may line up with COVID type symptoms, we're going to further broaden our PPE. We're going to put on gowns, face protection, stuff like that. And then the ER, they can expect the same thing in the ER. Those guys are wearing full gowns all the time, face shields, N95 or respirators. So you should be seeing that 100% of the time with every call of service.
And we don't want folks that are watching the show today, if they call EMS, to be afraid or worried when we come in. And they need to know that our dispatch is going to ask them questions, especially have you been around anybody that's COVID, so that we can protect our workers, correct?
There'll be a simple series of questions that the dispatcher will ask. And it's respiratory type questions, fever, travel, current exposure to other potential COVID patients. And rest assured, our units are getting decon between patients. The crews are decontaminating themselves between patients. So our environment in the back of the ambulance is very safe. And we're going to take every precaution necessary to make sure that our patients are safe as well.
Absolutely. In fact, we even take trucks out of service for a short period of time so that we can decontaminate.
Yes, sir.
And we're using the most modern techniques to, I know people are saying, well, what do they do,
Well, we follow CDC guidelines on all that stuff, but we have got sprayers that we actually get into the back of the truck that's got disinfectant solution in it. and spray every aspect of the back of the truck, let that air out. Change linens on the stretcher. We wipe down all the components of the stretcher on every single run. The crew decontaminates the front of the truck as well, even if there's no patients up there. Wiping down the steering wheel, gear shifts, knobs, buttons, stuff like that. And then they decon themselves with the same unit that we use in the back of the truck. It's sprayed down with the disinfectant to be ready for the next run.
But people are worried, correct?
Well, absolutely. And it's understandable. It's scary. Nobody knows where this is going, when it's going to get better, if it's going to get better. So, you know, we are doing everything we can to make sure that the patients that we take care of are safe on a daily basis.
And we want you folks to know that with us talking about this, we are not trying to scare anybody, worry anybody with what we're talking about. I know some of the things that we hear on the news, Daniel, scares folks, and it causes them to maybe even have, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it kind of sets it scares people so bad from what they're hearing that some of the things that are actually happening are not as bad.
Right. So the bottom line, and Mark obviously has touched on this in his position as EMS director. Follow the guidelines. It's really that simple. So keep social distance. Make sure that you're properly clean. Make sure you wash your hands. Do all the right things, and everything will be just fine. If you have a comorbidity that makes you more susceptible to the coronavirus, make sure that you take extra precautions. If you're 65 years or older, you're not calling you elderly, because I don't mean that at all.
Thank
but
you. I want to make sure
that
because I'm the oldest person sitting here.
Exactly. So and I was looking for that reaction. And so you're an elevated you're in a group that has elevated risk. So take proper precautions. Again, you look at it statistically. About less than 1% of Hardin Countyans have contracted COVID. Now, that doesn't mean it's not dangerous and we should just say, hey, we don't have to worry about it anymore. That's not the case at all. Take proper precautions. And if you take proper precautions, everything will be just fine.
So in saying that, Mark, when we come out to somebody's house, if we're not putting oxygen on them, we're probably going to put a mask on them.
Yeah, they can expect just a simple surgical mask. It's easy to breathe in. It's not quite as difficult as compared to the N95, and that's protection for everybody. Again, it's protection for the patient, number one. Just in the transition from the house to the ambulance to the ER, just so that they avoid any exposure. And we take some precautions if we have to give you a breathing treatment, for instance. We limit that breathing treatment to inside the ambulance versus as we walk into the ER. So this being a respiratory-driven disease, we take extra precautions with anything that we're doing respiratory-wise, with oxygen administration or breathing treatments, anything like that.
And they could even see us, when we talk about eye protection, they could see us anything from goggles on our eyes to an actual full face shield.
Sir. Yes,
and we don't want people to get upset. It's as much for their protection as it is for ours.
That's correct.
And so we want people to stress that.
Because at the end of the day, obviously we want patients and the public to be safe, but you have to keep in mind as well, we're critical infrastructure, or EMS is critical infrastructure. So we have to make sure at the end of the day we can still make runs and take care of sick people, injured people, whatever the case may be. And part of that is to make sure that our personnel are as safe as absolutely possible. We have gone to great planning, thanks to Mark and his team, to ensure that we even have a reserve force on standby if necessary, if we have enough EMTs and paramedics to go down, that we can still respond.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that when we're wearing the proper personal protection equipment, and by the way, folks, that's what PPE stands for, personal protection equipment. If we're wearing the proper personal protection equipment, N95 mask, face shield, gown, what have you, if we're exposed to somebody that has COVID, that is a non-exposure for us because we're wearing the proper PPE. So we don't want you all to think, well, they've been exposed to people that have COVID, so they should be quarantining. That is kind of a false thing that we've kind of heard through not just the media, but maybe some things that have gotten twisted even in social media.
Right, absolutely. Well, and it's preventative measures. Again, going back to what I said moments ago, everyone has to take the proper precautions based upon the position that they're in, whether it be elevated risk because of your age, elevated risk because of comorbidity, or elevated risk because of the job you do. We've got to make sure that we take the proper precautions so that each party is protected properly and everyone can go on about their business as much as possible.
Mark, one of the new things that you've actually done since you've come on board is now we have a deputy director for
Yes.
EMS, which we have never had.
Yes, Tim Carr is my deputy director, and he's our operations guy. He's going to be out on the streets a little more with the crews, handling logistical things for us. Big thing is keeping our trucks on the road with fleet maintenance. We have a really good working relationship with Doug's Towing, who does the majority of our work. He liaisons between EMS and Doug's and makes sure that we get preventive maintenance done. Anything that may pop up on the trucks throughout the course of a day. He's also been out making several runs, assisting the supervisors on scene, keeping Bryce in the loop on things that pertain to emergency management and stuff like that.
And the great thing is, not only do we have, is Timmy a paramedic and has been with Hardin County EMS for over 20 years
Yes.
now, he's a certified mechanic.
Yes.
So how lucky are we that we have somebody that manages our fleet that's a certified mechanic and a paramedic?
Yes, yes.
So he
is a
can work
blessing.
on you or he can work on any cars,
Yeah.
you know, either one.
He's
So
a jack of all trades
He
and
is,
a master
he
of all
is,
of
yeah.
them.
Yes, he is.
You just have
Yes,
to
he is.
remember, you know,
We're very
he is around. You may see him pull up, and he's got a white SUV that he may pull up in on scene. So just an extra hand sometimes
Yes.
is what our folks need. So that's a great thing.
Yes,
that
he's been a
happened.
huge asset so far as we both transition into our new positions.
And I know you're trying to do things saving money. We were talking on the way over here, Daniel, of a new pharmaceutical place that they're getting meds from to save taxpayer dollars. And it's been a big challenge to look at different ways that you all can save taxpayer dollars. For one thing that you all are doing is you're not buying brand new ambulances. You're taking some of your ambulances. Talk about that a little bit.
We purchased 5 brand new ambulances several years ago. And those chassis, the front of those trucks, have come to their end of life. They got several miles on them. So we've been, instead of buying a whole new ambulance, which is in excess of $200,000 a piece, we're taking the modules, the boxes of those ambulances, and remounting them on a new chassis. And it's saving us about $100,000 or so per ambulance. And we're finding out that it's working really well. The boxes are holding up. The chassis are doing well. The trucks have been reliable. They're expensive. Ambulances are expensive. They're expensive to maintain. They're expensive to purchase. So this is equip. Yeah, there's a lot of money just in the back of that ambulance and equipment. So by doing this, we're able to save some money and use it in other places, personnel, supplies, training, stuff like that.
You all just got a cool new grant from the Hospital Corporation. Of course, now they're assets that if they need to be deployed somewhere, they can be deployed. But the cool thing is we get to use them in the meantime.
Yes.
And you all just got a cool grant for some airways.
Yes, we've been working with the Healthcare Coalition. HERA is the name of the group. It's a regional coalition. And they work together with long-term care, hospitals, other EMS agencies to make sure that there's deployable assets for a region if there was a big mass casualty incident or a weather event, something like that. And we were able to through this grant, get what's called King Vision, which is a video laryngoscope system, which allows us to visually, through a camera, see your airway for advanced airway techniques. And that's important right now in COVID. We're not going to be so far into your airway. We're not going to be so close to your face when we're having to do these procedures. This video laryngoscope gives us a little screen, and we can do our work that way. Pretty costly piece of equipment, to be honest. It's something we've been looking at for a while. And the coalition got some extra money because of COVID funding, and they were able to help us out with that.
So you all are going to be able to get 10 of those.
Yes, 10. So we'll be able to outline all of our frontline trucks along with our supervisor vehicle, and even have one as a spare if need be, if one of an extra truck goes on the street or something like that. Yep.
Would y'all jump in a little bit, Bryce? I'm a former EMT, years removed, unfortunately, and I can tell you the quality of care that our EMS continues to drive toward is absolutely phenomenal. These pieces of equipment make it so much easier that in an event of a horrible emergency for you, they can actually get an airway much quicker, a more quality airway. Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult in some circumstances.
Yes.
So again, quality of life, being able to respond properly to those emergencies is huge. I think it's a year and a half ago now, we replaced all of our heart monitors.
Yes.
Which with the latest technology. Again, we have machines that do CPR, so that frees up our paramedics and EMTs to care for the patient. So these are huge strides that we have made here at Hardin County EMS to increase that quality of life, and I'm really proud of where we've been able to go there.
And not only that, but they've also in the last year provided us with brand new handheld radios too.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
and since we're talking about that, and these are a lot of this is budget related items that we're saving the taxpayers money. I know you've talked several times about trying to make us more efficient with less taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of things, Hardin County government, recently with public-private partnerships to bring more revenue into the county to provide for things such as what we're talking about. One, particularly is an IGSA, or Intergovernmental Service Agreement, that EMS has with Fort Knox to provide supplemental support to them when they have the summer cadet training out at Fort Knox. That obviously happens during the summer. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to do that this past summer, which hurt quite a bit on the fiscal side. It's $170,000. But the previous fiscal year, we were able to do that, again, earn that $170,000. That goes back into the county coffers to offset expenses that we invest into Hardin County EMS. We've had a couple of other agreements such as that relating to trash service. Another $200,000 from Fort Knox as part of an IGSA. We revamped an agreement with our landfill operator that has brought more money in, so that helps offset services such as EMS that is provided, that's absolutely critical and important to our residents. You don't make money in EMS. It's just not a money maker. You hope to break even as much as possible. This past fiscal year, unfortunately, we set a deficit record with EMS at almost $900,000. That wasn't the fault of Mark. It wasn't the fault of his predecessor. That was the impact of COVID.
Right.
That just really hit us hard on the fiscal side. The previous fiscal year, we actually practically broke even. We just lost $50,000.
Had one of the best years we'd ever had.
And in EMS, that's a home run. And so Mark has a little pressure on him this current fiscal year to get back to that point. Previously, we had lost anywhere from $250,000 to $750,000. Mark will get us back there again with the run volume increasing, which is a double-edged sword. We need to see that from a business side, but we don't want to see that from a patient care side, because that means people are suffering.
But now, Daniel, with that, people got stimulus money, and I know that the county got a little bit of that, plus some CARES money. But that has to be. It's not like they give you free gratis money. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's not money falling out of the trees, unfortunately, that we just spend on anything. It's reimbursable money. We're going to receive for countywide about $4 million, give or take, in federal CARES money that's being reimbursed for losses that we've had throughout the county. But that money will be divvied up between the losses. EMS, obviously, Sheriff's Office has suffered from some of their user fees and so on decreasing. We've had some added election expenses with the county clerk's office, having to do more absentee voting and so on. So that money is intended to cover all aspects. So we may not, in the end, be made whole, but we'll be pretty close, if not being made whole, to help cover some of these deficits, which is nice.
But that's partly in thanks to some of our U.S. reps and
I tell you,
senators,
we're phenomenal and blessed to have particularly Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in the Senate looking out for Kentucky. Obviously, that was part of the CARES legislation that I know he's talked about a great deal. And of course, Brett Guthrie, our local U.S. representative, they have fought hard to make sure that we to get some of that funding and make us whole. So kudos to them certainly for helping us.
So since this has been a strain on budget, can you kind of talk about our budget and where we stand county-wise?
Sure, absolutely. We're still in a knife fight each fiscal year, and where we're at, we're getting better, getting more efficient through again some of the agreements that we've previously highlighted. The great work that our department heads like Mark are doing to really put downward pressure on those deficits and make efficiencies across each department. We've done really well in that regard. We're finishing each year about $1 million, give or take, of surplus, and I quote surplus from it's really not that, because we have to defer certain things throughout the year because of our budget situation and how tight it is. We have about a $40 million operational budget. So when you pull $1 million out, you're looking at about 3-4% that you have left over at the end of the year. So if you compare that to your household budget, say it's $50,000 and you have 3% left at the end of the year, well, you're looking at about $1,500 that you're having that left over at the end of the year. That's pretty tight, and so that's what you're putting away for emergencies. So if you think about it, for a government, $40 million, we're putting away $1 million at the end of the year for a budget. You don't have much room for something to go wrong.
And if we hadn't had that put away, we wouldn't have been able to take care of the not discrepancies, but the bad timing for COVID coming in, hurting the budget at EMS.
Right, absolutely. And to highlight at this point, we have about 15 to 20 roads in Hardin County that should be paved, resurfaced right now. And so when you're having $1 million left over, but yet you have this deferred maintenance that you can't pay for that needs to be done right now, you really don't have a surplus, and
right.
And that's really what I'm trying to highlight. So we're all working very hard to make sure that we put downward pressure on expenses and ensure that we do everything as efficiently as absolutely possible.
But what a lot of people don't realize is that even though we're getting tax money in at usually in November, December time frame, when we start our new budget in July, a lot of times we have to utilize some of that money that we've saved up because we're not getting any tax money in until
right.
November, December.
Well, you have to cash flow, and so you think about it like a business, or you think about it from again your home perspective, depending on how often you're paid. At home, we usually get paid every 2 weeks. County government, we get paid once a year when it comes to tax revenue. So we have to make sure that we cash flow until we have that money coming in. So we have a good 6 months that we have to make sure we have money saved and in our coffers to account for any emergencies or to cash flow county government until we get those receipts.
And I know we're told don't make any big expenditures
right,
until after November, and we're stretching money, and so we try
right.
not to do anything.
Well, again, you think about your household budget. If you were paid once a year, while that might be looking pretty good the first month that you got that payment, you got to figure out how to stretch that over 12 months, and that can get pretty difficult and dicey.
Sure, but as far as people worry sometimes, that during these past few months we went through somewhat of a recession with people being laid off. We had nobody laid off.
No,
we kept going.
We kept everyone at work. Of course, most of our functions are critical infrastructure. Talk about EMS, talk about 911, talk about the sheriff's office, talk about animal control. We did make some adjustments there in terms of inflow to ensure that we didn't get overwhelmed with animals, which could be an issue. We had a staff there with some comorbidities that made them susceptible. So we had to shut the valve down, if you will, in terms of intake there, but we didn't lay anyone off. We shifted responsibilities. We got caught up in some of our preventative maintenance and so on. We had to shift people to mowing, for example. Obviously, grass continued to grow. COVID didn't affect it. Generally, that's taken care of by our detention center through inmate labor. But Department of Corrections cut that off so that they didn't have any contact with the public. So we had to shift employees to doing things like that to ensure that those tasks still got completed.
Well, we just want the public to know that we are We are very much keeping on with
Absolutely.
projects, keeping on with services, and haven't missed a beat whatsoever with EMS, with 911, with animal care and control, which is pretty much back in full strength again.
It is.
We had a few people that had to work from home and still have one or two, but we've kept all of our people going because we're essential.
We are, and that's important from an economic standpoint as well. You know, either way, particularly in our situation, our employees were going to get paid with tax dollars. So if we laid them off, it would have been unemployment, which a large part of that, with the extra that was passed by Congress, was going to be tax dollars. So we chose to keep them on board, ensure that they continue to be paid. And again, we had other functions that needed to be done. We are very blessed to have employees in county government that are true team oriented. Just tell me what you need me to do and I'll go do it, and that really showed up.
And we've been very blessed during this whole time that we've only had 6 or 7 of our employees that have contacted COVID, but they've all had very mild cases, many of them with no fever and very few symptoms from it whatsoever.
And I think that's a testament to the preventative measures that we put in place to ensure that we can continue to operate again, particularly EMS, because they've been exposed to COVID patients, but we've had very few contractions there when you consider their exposure level. So everyone's done a great job in taking this serious and putting in preventative measures.
Guys, our time always goes by quick, and we got the 3-minute mark. Daniel, anything that you want to bring up to talk about as far as going on in county government?
Yeah, hey, I just want to thank everyone for again being understanding of our services through this. I know our clerk's office, for example, has had it's been a challenge there in keeping everyone service, but everyone's been patient. We appreciate that. We again tried to be as absolutely public oriented through this as possible while taking the appropriate preventative measures, and we greatly appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to Josh Lindblom and a great job that he did this past fiscal year at the detention center. Again, one of those situations where, like EMS, you don't make money in the detention center business, but he spent almost $1 million less in expenses than what he was budgeted for this past fiscal year. So it's work like that helps us get through the tough times.
And Josh has been able to, before COVID started, bring a lot of his folks from the detention center to help us out on our workload as well.
Absolutely, which is huge. You talk about the fairgrounds, you talk about county government property. He's got them looking great, and that's all on him. We appreciate that. And our county, he picks up tons and tons. His inmate labor picks up tons and tons of trash off Hardin County roads and streets every year, and he keeps us looking beautiful.
Well, this summer has gone by quickly. We're in September, right? As you all are going to watch this, it'll be September when you all see this show come out. So I mean, our summer has flown by.
I think everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, by COVID, when COVID first started up, it was like everything was creeping by, and then summer hit and it's flown. And it'll be my favorite time of the year. Before we know it, it'll be Christmas, and I'll be wearing strange sweaters. And
hopefully, we get the gift of a cure for Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's well in the mark. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for all you do for our community. We appreciate you, Mark. Welcome aboard. We are so glad to have you join us as one of our leaders in Hardin County government.
Thank you very much.
And we thank you all for joining us here on Hardin County Educational and Community TV, where we keep you informed on what's going on around this great community that we call Hardin County, but more especially what's going on in your students' life in the Hardin County school system. Maybe adjusted a little bit, but they're still at school and they're going, and so we'll keep you up to date on all those things and what's going on. I'm Bryce Shoemate from Hardin County Government. Stay safe, use your mask, use your distancing, and you'll be all right. Have a great day.